Guys, guess what time it is? It's cookie season. I'm Ella here, your favorite Girl Scout, and we have your oldies but goodies. Lemonades, dimmits, peanut butter sandwiches, and more. This year we have a new cookie flavor called the Explore Mug. My goal is 200 boxes, so please make that happen. You're gonna buy cookies anyway, so why not buy them from me?
What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly sports history for February 3rd, 2026. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Tuesday edition of the podcast. Might get up to 40 degrees today. It is a heat wave indeed, but it is Tuesday. Time for a little bit of motivation / positivity brought to you by the Clashing Conferences Sports Fan Network. We are proud members of the Clashing Conferences Sports Fan Network here at this day in Philly sports history. Go to clashingconferences.com, see how you can join, get involved, what they have to offer, and then, of course, check out their podcast anywhere you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. And this one comes from Dr. Steve Maraboli, and it's very simple and sometimes helps put things into perspective, but life doesn't get easier or more forgiving. We just get stronger and more resilient. And I think this ties in. We talk a lot about growing, learning from mistakes, and getting better, a little bit better each and every day. This ties in perfectly with that, whether it's with workouts, your job, your family, relationships, tough situations, whatever you're going through, this ties in with that. And it's not, again, when people, oh, this is getting easier. It's not getting any easier. You're getting better and more equipped with dealing with it. So take the experiences you have in life, good and bad, learn from them and grow. And I think a lot of times people get frustrated and tend to give up and throw up their hands. But you need to be consistent. And I think with consistency is where you start seeing that growth. With consistency is where things get quote unquote easier. And if you don't, you're going to continue to struggle if you're not consistent. Are there going to be bad days? Absolutely. I go through it every single day, ups and downs, this and that. But continue to grow, learn from the pain, learn from the struggle, develop healthy habits. That's a big one. And I think that tends to get me a lot when I'm not going through and doing what's best for me and my mental and physical health. That's when things start to snowball. You feel overwhelmed. You feel like things are tough. You can't handle it. Tackle the discomfort head on. And that comes through those healthy habits, whether it's meditating, whether it's exercise, whether it's doing something to just unplug for a certain amount of time. But take that discomfort head on. And truthfully, I like this. This is kind of a bonus quote here today. But if things, whatever that thing is for you, if they were easy, everybody would be doing it. It's going to be hard. It's going to be tough sometimes, but just remain consistent, continue to grow, build up that resiliency, build up that strength, and you will get better. So that comes to you from Dr. Steve Maraboli. Life does not get easier or more forgiving. We get stronger and more resilient. So continue to work hard to build up that strength and build up the resiliency. And that is Tuesday motivation / positivity, brought to you by the Clashing Conferences Sports Fan Network. Go to clashingconferences.com for details on what they have to offer. All right, so we're going to start with the Sixers. Good win out west. If you're like me, you probably missed it. But 128-113 over the Clippers. Obviously, no Paul George. So who was going to step up? And that would be Dominic Barlow. Good game from Dom. 26 points, 16 rebounds. Hopefully this can be consistent. Maybe these guys that are going to get a chance to show what they have will be able to fill and step into those roles. Tyrese Maxey had 29, including 7 threes. Joe had 24. good win. They led the whole way. Fourth win in a row, second straight without Paul George. 23 games to go, but I'm not going to do that every day, I promise. But good win, good step up by Dominic Barlow. They're in Golden State tonight. Likely Joe will sit out because it's a back-to-back. But the Sixers looking for their fifth straight tonight in Golden State. Flyers, meanwhile, will be at home at the X against the Capitals. They need a win badly. They need a win or the Olympic break, either one. But hopefully that comes tonight. And I wasn't going to mention this because typically I don't do and spend a lot of time on rumors and speculation and things like that. But this was all over the place yesterday, and I figured I'd give my take on it. The whole Vic Fangio retirement thing. There's still conflicting reports about what's going on. And I think there's a couple things in play here. And nobody really wants to address the first because we like Vic. But... And again, we don't know what's going on behind closed doors. So this is purely speculation, purely just based on what I know. But if Vic is up in the air about it, he needs to let them know as soon as possible. I think that's just the way it goes. But at the same time, if you're the Eagles... And again, we don't know what's happening behind closed doors. You need to have a backup plan that's not, hey, we called Jonathan Gannon and Jim Schwartz, who were here before. You need to have something in place, whether it's somebody on the staff. They let Christian Parker go. He could have been somebody who stepped in. So, again, all of this is speculation, but Vic needs to let the team know as soon as possible. But... as much as you want to give him the grace, it is what it is. And as somebody who deals with people and staffing, you need to know these things as soon as possible. However, if I, as somebody who's been in this experience, if I even have an inkling that a teacher is going to put in notice or retire or whatever they might be, I start formulating backup plans and contingency plans to be safe. So hopefully the Eagles are doing that. But again, this is all speculation because we don't know the true story. If this is Vic Fangio's last year, I think the Eagles need to spend time doing their homework and due diligence to figure out who they're going to get in there. But it's kind of what my take is. I'm not going to go as far as say you need to give Vic an ultimatum, but I think Vic owes it to the team as well to give them an answer quickly. And again, maybe this is all a moot point because it's already been decided that he is coming back. So my 2 cents on that. If you want more on Eagles coverage, tomorrow, the new Brotherly Birds Breakdown Super Bowl edition will be out. That's available wherever you get your podcasts as well as on YouTube. We'll talk about Vic, Sean Mannion, Grizzard, offseason, and even look at the game slightly as well. So that is available wherever you get your podcasts as well as on YouTube. And a big day for the Phillies. The trucks are loaded. They're getting ready to hit the road down to Clearwater to start spring training. And I think I, for one, am more excited about this season than I have been in recent years. Not because I think they're going to contend. I think with the way the Dodgers are, the Mets certainly got better. The Braves will be better. All of that. But I want to see what these young guys have. See what all this hype has been. We've heard for the past few years, Crawford, Painter, Miller. Well, let's see what the kids can do. So I'm excited for specifically the spring training to see what these guys can do against major league caliber-ish players. I mentioned before that I saw Crawford last year up in the Lehigh Valley. He was by far the best player on the field. I don't know what that does for translating to major leagues, but I'm damn sure excited to see. So the equipment trucks are loaded and headed down to Clearwater. But how are you guys feeling? How's everybody feeling about this Phillies team out there? Like I said, I'm excited to see the young guys. Not so much excited for the play on the field. Maybe they'll prove us wrong. I mean, the 83 Phillies, the Wheeze kids, they did it. And this team is not quite that old, but Let me know your thoughts on the Back to the Future voice and text line 267-495-8531. Get that and anything else Philly sports related off your chest. Talk to me about Vic as well. And then yesterday's trivia question in honor of Wilt's double, triple, double. There's only been one other one in NBA history. Who was it? It was Russell Westbrook in 2019, I believe. Can never say his name. Russell Westbrook had a 20-20-20 game in 2019. He and Wilt are the only ones to ever do that in NBA history. All right, some quick housekeeping. I mentioned the Brotherly Birds. Hit me up on all social media platforms at Philly Jimbo. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, Jimbo_Mod. Continue to spread the word. And if you're in the mood and looking for a 3D custom hype chain, go to Lotwin.com. They got you covered. These things are awesome. Use the promo code TCCPOD for 10% off your order. Reppin' Philly ain't a choice. It's a way of life. PhillyGoat.com is your one-stop shop for Philly pride. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off. Look fresh. Stay Philly. Philly Goat. Go Birds. All right, February 3rd, the day after Groundhog's Day. And that damn Phil predicted 6 more weeks of winter. Thanks a lot, Phil. That's why Gus is our favorite groundhog here on this day in Philly sports history. But anyway, we're going to go back to 1976. And on this day in 1976, it was the NBA All-Star Game in Philadelphia at the Spectrum. One of 3 All-Star games slated for that year due to the country's bicentennial. Hard to believe that was 50 years ago at this point. We were talking about that little side note. We were getting the ballot prepared and prepped for this year's Hall of Fame induction for the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame. And typically 50 years is kind of the quote-unquote contemporary versus legacy. Hard to believe that 1976 was 50 years ago. Yeah, let that sink in. Anyway, 50 years ago, the NBA All-Star Game was played here in Philly. A couple notes about this All-Star Game. It was the final one played on a weekday and the last one pre the NBA-ABA merger. Sixers were represented by Doug Collins and George McGinnis. Doug had 12 points, 16 rebounds. George McGinnis, 10 points, 7 rebounds. As the East beat the West, 123-109. Dave Big of the Washington Bullets took home the MVP honors with 16 points. Bob McAdoo and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar each had game highs for their respective conferences with 22. But the NBA All-Star Game on this day, excuse me, in 1976 in Philly at the Spectrum, one of 3 All-Star games played in Philly that year. And that does lead us to today's trivia question. Not the first time the NBA All-Star Game was played in Philadelphia, and it wasn't the last. So which years were the NBA All-Stars in Philadelphia to play in the All-Star Game? Hit me up on the Back to the Future voice and text line 267-495-8531 or the Discord channel, which is in the description. But which years were the NBA All-Stars in Philly to play in the All-Star Game? And then fast forward 20 years later, to 1996, the Flyers traveled to St. Louis to play the Blues. Eric Lindros had a hat trick, the 8th of his career. Also added an assist. Joel Otto had 2 goals. John LeClair 2 assists. Ron Hextall saved 31. And the Flyers left St. Louis with a 7-3 win over the Blues. This is around the time people started saying this team is going to be good. It's going to be good. But Flyers beat the Blues 7-3. Eric Lindros with a hat trick and an assist. Flyers win, coming back with the 7-3 win. And then in 2023, the Sixers go to San Antonio and play the Spurs. Joel had 33 points and 10 rebounds. Tyrese Maxey with 25 points off the bench. James Harden, 16 points, 8 assists as the Sixers win 137-125 to improve to 34-17 against a spunky Spurs team. They would not go away. Sixers had a big lead in this game. Spurs battled back, but I believe this is one of those games where we saw this a lot with Doc. Doc would take the starters out, the bench would falter, and he'd have to put the starters back in. This was one of those games, but Joe led the way with 33 and 10. Sixers leave San Antonio with a 137-125 win. And then finally today, our Black History Month Spotlight. We've been talking about and will be talking about people whose legacies and careers were forged in Philadelphia. We're going to go to the boxing ring and take a look at Jesse Hart, who's a North Philly native, son of a boxer, Eugene Hart, who was his trainer. Jesse was a National Gold Glove winner and a U.S. national champion as a middleweight. At one point, he was the number one ranked amateur middleweight in the country. Unfortunately, lost in the U.S. Olympic trials in 2012. Turned pro and boxed for Top Rank Boxing. Fought on the undercard of the Mayweather-Pacquiao fight. I actually remember watching this being this guy is pretty damn good. He did win the NABF super middleweight championship and their junior middleweight championship. He did fight twice for the WBO super middleweight championship. Unfortunately lost both times, one of two of the three losses he had in his career. 30-3 with 24 KOs. But Jesse Hart, guy you probably never heard of, but wasn't built on hype, even though his dad was a boxer. He was forged in those Philly gyms where toughness is currency and respect is earned the hard way. So Jesse Hart, forged in Philly, is our Black History Month. Philadelphia, born, raised, had their career defined here in Philadelphia. Pretty damn good fighter, both amateur and professional. But Jesse Hart is today's spotlight. On this day in 2023, the Sixers go to San Antonio, beat the Spurs 137-125. 1996, Eric Lindros with a hat trick and an assist as the Flyers beat the Blues in St. Louis 7-3. And then 1976, the NBA All-Star Game played at the Spectrum. East beating the West. Doug Collins and George McGinnis. And I think I said Doug Collins had 16 rebounds in that game. He, in fact, had 6. 12-6 for Dougie. And then George McGinnis had 10-7 as they represented the Sixers. We'll have more on the Flyers and Sixers tomorrow, as well as the latest, if there is any update on the Vic Fangio news, as we gear up toward the Super Bowl and one of the more anticipated off seasons in recent memory for the Eagles. Phillies buses and trucks are going down to Clearwater. That means spring training is close. Looking forward to seeing what these young guys have to do. And remember, life doesn't get easier or more forgiving. We get more resilient and stronger. So continue to learn from your mistakes, grow from the pain, hit those challenges head on, and you'll be fine. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History for February 3rd, 2026. My name's Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a Tuesday. Enjoy this heat wave. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.